Hello and welcome to a chilly night in Carlsbad Caverns National Park in a remote canyon called Rattlesnake Canyon. Last week we were in the Sonoran Desert. This week we're in the Chihuahuan Desert in southern New Mexico. When the sun comes up, we'll get out and we'll show you some of the differences and some of the cool, unique features of this remote canyon.
Oh, good morning. I didn't see you standing there. Well, it's time to drag ourselves out of bed on a chilly morning here in Rattlesnake Canyon. About 40 degrees is about as low as it got last night. But time to get up, take on the day, and show you Rattlesnake Canyon. So when we were in the Sonoran Desert, we saw the saguaro cactus. That was the indicator of that desert. But here in the Chihuahuan Desert, the lechuguilla plant is the indicator for the Chihuahuan Desert. This is a pretty incredible little plant. It only blooms every 10 to 20 years, but when it does bloom, it sends up a stalk that can grow up to 8 inches a day. And then after all that growth, the plant will die. But this plant has a lot of uses. It can be made into a soap. Natives used it as a arrow poison. These tips are super strong, and once they get into you, they usually get infected with because they leave behind a little poison. So it's a pretty nasty plant, but pretty cool at the same time. Here we can see a example of a lechuguilla that has died after it has bloomed, and how long that stalk is. And that stalk grows extremely quickly, about up to 8 inches a day. This may be a little hard to see. We came across an area with a lot more grass and weeds and stuff. And then just slightly down the trail is this wall. It's a little hard to see. And then right across the trail, we have this structure. And what I'm thinking is there was a homestead or something here. And this structure was either the foundation or a water catchment. But you can see there's a bunch of artifacts here. This right here either was some sort of gas burners, either for light or for heat. These look like some stove parts. Maybe a piece of tin roof. And over here we have some cans and some other remnants. So it's some pretty incredible find, and that somebody came all the way down here, hauled all this concrete this far into the canyon to try and make some sort of life for themselves. It's pretty fascinating. I'm not sure what this guy is, but probably some sort of oak. But you can see even oaks in the desert have spines and sharp edges to protect themselves. This is a sodal. I don't know much about these ecologically. I'm sure different creatures have a lot of different uses for them in the ecosystem. But what I find most interesting, outside of the fact that they're in the lily family, which is really strange, is all the uses that Native Americans had for these. They would weave the leaves into baskets and mats. They would roast the flower heads and then distill the juice and make an alcoholic drink out of them. And then they could also use these stalks as the shafts in their atlatls in order to hunt game. We're in a wash here at the bottom of Rattlesnake Canyon, and if we look, there is evidence that occasionally this flows, and flows pretty heavily. All this debris bunched up under this tree is evidence of the water rushing through here, usually in a flash flood type situation during the monsoon season. One of the darker chapters in Rattlesnake Canyon history happened somewhere right here in this wash. In 1999, a hiker was murdered here. He and his companion were here, and his companion killed him for some reason. The companion claimed that they were lost, disoriented, dying of dehydration, and it was a mercy killing. The jury, I guess the jury's not still out on that, but that was his story, and it's kind of a tragic thing to happen here in such a beautiful place. This rock here almost looks like it's been placed here and cemented here, but what happens is as water rushes down this wash, it fills in the cracks between all these rocks and then cements them together. So this is a pretty cool conglomerate that would form in the bottom of this wash by rushing water. The Chihuahuan Desert has over 26 species of cactus. I just learned a pretty interesting thing about cactus that are growing in rocks like this. That their roots have fungus and bacteria that helps facilitate their growth. And one of the things that that fungus and bacteria does is actually breaks down the rock and provides nutrients for the cactus. So that's just a kind of a mutualistic way that the cactus is able to survive by growing in these cracks in this limestone. Here's some evidence of probably deer munching on a cactus. It's always amazing to me that they can do that and put up with the spines, but they do. Rattlesnake Canyon is a canyon that was carved in the Capitan Reef, a reef that was deposited here about 250 million years ago in a shallow inland sea that covered this area. This limestone is actually the evidence that we need to show that this whole area is made up of the bones and the skeletons and all that made up that reef. I mentioned earlier that there are 26 species of cactus here in the Chihuahuan Desert. This may be hard to believe, but there are over 150 types of sunflower. I'm not sure what kind of sunflower this is because it's not bloomed or anything, but that's incredible. This is a pretty interesting feature in the rock. It almost looks like fossilized turtle shell, but what I think this is an area that was millions of years ago super wet and then dried, and as the earth cracked it left these patterns. People often ask me if I'm afraid or scared when I'm out in nature alone. Aren't I afraid of animals, of getting lost, of weather, of getting hurt? And I don't want to discount all those things. Those are definitely things to be concerned about, but they also don't really think about the benefits of being alone. You can get a little bit closer to nature, you have flexibility, you can go your own pace, it gives you time to collect your thoughts. So there's a lot of benefits to being out in nature alone. Now, you need to take some precautions, but they're pretty simple precautions. You need to first of all be prepared. You need to have all the gear you need and maybe a little bit more. The right food, the right water, the right clothing, all those things. You need to tell people where you're going. On this trip, multiple people know where I'm going. My family, some co-workers, the rangers at the ranger station, so people know where I'm going. I have the right experience. So all these things factor into my being able to head out alone. So if you're confident, if you have the right skills, there's nothing that says that you shouldn't go out alone. You just have to take the proper precautions. One of the pieces of gear that I do always take with me when I'm going out alone is this thing. It's called a personal locator beacon. And if I were to get completely lost, if I were to get injured and couldn't get myself out, if for any reason I needed rescue, this antenna pops up and I would hit that red button and it would send a satellite signal out and rescue would be on its way. It's not something you want to rely on, but it is good peace of mind in case you need it. Sure glad I didn't find this before I camped out in the desert last night. Here's a what remains of a deer, probably drugged here by coyotes or something, but most likely killed by mountain lions. If you're gonna hike in the desert, I would recommend having some sort of tweezers, and maybe even better tweezers than the ones you find on your Swiss Army knife. You are going to get cactus spines and spikes of some sort. You can see my arm's pretty cut up. The Chihuahuan Desert. It's hot. It's remote. Almost everything in it wants to bite you, poke you, stick you. But under all that danger, it is incredibly beautiful. It's the largest desert in North America and the most biologically diverse desert in the world. It takes some care and caution to explore, but it is definitely worth getting out and exploring and seeing what it has to offer. It just takes a little bit of extra preparation.